and prove that love wins.
Tuesday, everybody, and welcome back to another episode, actually the very first episode of season 2 of the Reconnect with Your Teenager podcast with your host, yours truly, Emma G. If you are new to this platform, if you're new to me, if you're new to what this is all about, again, my name is Emma G, and I am a singer-songwriter on a mission to save the world one song at a time, because I recognize, we've been through a lot in the last few years, and especially our young people, our Generation Z. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely noticed that we are having to navigate some of the trauma, struggles, adversity, and overwhelm that our young people are experiencing a little bit differently in this new post-pandemic era. So as a youth empowerment through songwriting coach, it was, I don't know, a breath of inspiration came to me one day when I decided, you know what? This is a very unconventional way to help young people. So why not reach out to other unconventional youth workers, light workers, healers, spiritual workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, so on and so forth, about how they are using their unique factor to help empower and enrich this next generation. So today, for your first episode of season 2, I'm so pleased to be joined by Nicole Holland, who is a spiritual worker using, oh my goodness, so many tools of expertise and spirituality and magic, I want to say, to help our young people thrive in, coming into the Christmas of 2023. So how are you, Nicole? What's going on? Talk to me. Tell me about yourself.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Emma. I'm just super excited to be here, and definitely, like-minded. And we are living in a time that's really unique, and people are disconnected. And I just love what you're doing here. I love that we're diving into these conversations, and yes, youth empowerment. It's all about it, right?
Love it, love it, love it. So, your bio that you sort of send out to people, you talk about how you help people move through their greatest fears, transcend doubt, and live their most authentic, joy-filled lives. I feel like, I love that, but I feel as if a lot of people kind of look at that and think, that's not going to work for me. I'm not one of her people. Joy, what is that? So can you take me through a little bit about what some of the blocks are people often have when it comes to figuring out what it means to be a happy, joy-filled human?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and such a big one, right? And everybody.
Oh, we don't go small here. Come on now.
Everybody is so unique. Every situation is so unique. And I was actually having a conversation with somebody earlier, a business related conversation. And it's like, I used the analogy of children. So whether it's a business or a child that's grown up, it's already something. Oh, you can't hear me?
No. I was saying me. I'm the child that hasn't grown up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the external environments are always changing, right? And we are trained to look at and discuss external, but we're not used to discussing internal. We're used to being, and when we think about even children, right? And the child comes into the world, and as a parent, you are tasked with caring for this helpless little being and raising it up. And while you're doing that, you're still having to deal with all of the external circumstances of your own life as well. And so this disconnect happens once people kind of get into grooves, and they stop remembering, or they stop really thinking about the impact of every little thing, right? When there's a tiny little baby, it's like it cries, and it's like, what does that mean, right? And you want to investigate it. But as the child gets older, and especially when they get a little more challenging, right? When they get a little more willful, especially in their teens, when they start really wanting to assert their own independence, parents can't really understand where the kids are coming from. Kids can't really understand what the parents are coming from. And at the same time, our environment, especially post-pandemic, is training us not to pay attention to the people. We're paying attention things. We're paying attention to the messages that are telling us, be happy, right? Put on this mask. And we're so unaware of like, how do we even do that internally? And I think that's the first thing, is really understanding that joy is a sense, it's a feeling inside, and happy is an idea, right? But joy is like pure pleasure, right? When you exist somewhere and you're away from the chaos, and you're smelling the roses, if you will, or you're enjoying something that's delicious or whatever, you're with somebody that just lights you up, you're enjoying it, meaning you are in the joy of it. And so if you imagine something that just brings you a sense of peace and calm, and like you can't help but smile, that's joy. And every single person knows what that is. They just may not be able to access it all the time because they're focused on the external circumstances.
I love that. And that has come up with, you've given me so many other questions, because I think, so first and foremost, you've taken me back to 2018 when I was in Barcelona, and I was in a yoga retreat, and somebody, one of the yoga masters made mention of this one, this mantra of, you are loved, you are love, and everything you could possibly need lives within you. Because you're completely right. We have all of these, the answers inside of us. We are just, I think, programmed, as you said, to ignore the internal and look more at the external. That sort of brings me to my next question, though, because I think, as we've seen our young people and older people, let's be real, over the last few years, shift from their, face-to-face communication and being able to socialize more in person, people's ability to not just communicate about their internal feelings or internal struggles even, but instead opt for things like Zoom or like texting, Instagram, Reels, TikTok videos, whatever. So it's almost like I've seen a dramatic shift in how we're communicating about our feelings, as opposed to just, even letting ourselves identify what those feelings are in the first place. How have you found that has shifted with the clients that you work with, or have you noticed a difference, or am I just completely talking nonsense?
Definitely not talking nonsense. And, at large, that's the thing, is we especially since everything went virtual, right? Most people did not already have much experience living virtually or managing their own days. So all these people who've been in systems that have managed them, whether it's the traditional education system, whether it's their traditional job, whatever, all of a sudden, overnight, excuse me, everything changed. And there was all this fear, and everybody was afraid. Nobody knew what to believe, what to do, right? And it kind of sent everybody into a bit of a tailspin. And I don't think we've recovered from that, because I don't think people know what recovery looks like. And so with any sort of like addiction or any kind of behavior that you want to change, you have to understand where it comes from. You have to understand why it's happening. And I don't think people recognize how disconnected from themselves they are, because they've had to go from standard systems that they were comfortable with to new standard systems that nobody knows how to create a system, right? And it's like all these different things, and everybody's kind of putting the cart before the horse, and it's exhausting. So the coping mechanism that I can speak to the US because I haven't been overseas since the pandemic. But you can see it everywhere, wherever you look, wherever you go, people are like this all the time, and they're multitasking. They've got split, they're not focused on any one thing. And if you're not focused anywhere and you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, except that you have to do it, and this is what I think most people are feeling. got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. And they're not saying, okay, hold on. Whoop. Why do I have to do that? What does that make me feel like when I think about having to do that? Is it true? Do I really have to do that? Am I allowed to feel something? So I think people have not been using critical thinking. We've been conditioned not to. And we went from standard systems that had been employed for a very long time to all of a sudden nothing and fear. And then everybody's going, okay, you got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. And so, yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think that for us to recover from something, we have to understand what the problem is first.
Mm-hmm.
When we get into overwhelm, it's really hard for people to slow down, take a broader perspective look and say, what is going on here? And then say, where do I want to focus first on recovery? What's the problem? And then what do I want things to look like? And then what am I going to do to get it? And so I don't know if that answers your question or just puts more stuff out there, but I think we really need to recognize that we're being run opposed to running our own system. Does that make sense?
No, that totally makes sense. Because I think you're completely right. I think, and this, back when I was getting my teaching qualifications, I did a deep dive into the different learning pedagogies that we tend to adopt in Western, educational systems. And, what you're saying to me reminds me a lot of that, is that we're creating and we're living in and developing this system for ourselves that we're being told to develop, that that will serve us really well in the factory industry or in the working for somebody else industry. But when we give ourselves the autonomy to really take control, as I like to say, take the pen and write our own song as opposed to singing somebody else's song, people go kind of feel shell shocked, like that. What does that mean? What does that look like? What does that smell like, sound like, taste like? But I think you're right. The pandemic has almost forced us to really wipe the slate clean and go, okay, what do you want?
Well, in theory, it could have,
right,
for some, but what it, I think, has done for most is what you said, right? The system. So when we went from standard systems to like whatever system, right? Everybody's doing their like whatever, and everybody's just trying to keep up and tread water. We're repeating. We're making habits, and we're habitually repeating patterns that are chaotic, that are everywhere. There's no direct outcome. For example, some years ago, when people were more connected with each other, they actually spoke on the phone. They actually had conversations, right? If you couldn't be with somebody in face-to-face situation, you would speak on the phone. Well, now people are so used to being in touch and connected with all our different devices and all our different, whether we're on Zoom or this or that, or, we're all over the place. And so people are afraid to have conversations. It's like, who's the last person you've spoken with, on the phone? It's like, people are overwhelmed by all the options, I think. And so they're just literally trying to figure it out and trying to figure it out and figure it out. And when we're in figuring it out mode, or when we are repeating things that habits that we've developed without understanding why, it's like we're just kind of doing this all the time,
juggling. Lots of juggling.
We're trying to survive. Yes, thank you. No hold back to you. That's the thing. You're in survival mode. When we're in crisis or survival mode and we're trying to figure it out, we aren't pausing, breathing, and going, what do I want? Right? We're going like out here. What do I want? What do I want? Right? And somebody mentioned convenience. It's like, these are the easy things. And this is the thing you're supposed to do. It just keeps you going. So that if people can understand that really they just need to take a break, and not take a break as in, hey, let me meme about, I'm going to take a break, hashtag self-care, but actually go, hang on, in the moment, like,
breathe.
right.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
allowed to breathe. Like, nobody is going to stop me from breathing for a moment. The world is not going to end if I take a breath. I don't want to act in this emotionally charged, or oftentimes not emotionally charged. People are not connected to their emotions, and they're just running. You don't want to do things from that space if you want to change something.
Again, you have conjured up two different thought processes for me. So I want to first attack the first point that you brought up, which with regards to the taking a breath. I think one of the things that people often, at least with the clients that I'm working with, and I'm actually I'm going to take this a little bit old school, Nicole. I'm going to take it back to the Jagged Little Pill album by Alanis Morissette. One of the lines that she sings in her song "All I Really Want" is, "Why are you so petrified of silence?" I think a lot of people, it's not just that we don't want to breathe or we don't know how to breathe, we're scared to breathe, because the minute we just sit in silence, the minute we sit in spirit, the minute we sit in our filth, is like an opportunity for it to rise to the surface. And we have to really start to look at constructively, which to your point, we've kind of forgotten the art of, really constructively look at where we're going, where we've come from, and why we're going there, or why we've taken this path. So that takes me to my next question. As a spiritual guide, as a spiritual healer, because for me, my whole thing is, okay, take that silence, take that gunk, and actually fuel it towards something positive and powerful, and write a song about it. As a spiritual guide and healer, what is it about that silence that you think best fuels people, or best helps them along in their journey towards self-actualization and healing?
Thank you for asking that. I think first we need to talk about, before you can move forward, you have to know where you are. And you just said, right, where you're coming from, right? And we can look at the world right now, what's going on anywhere in the world, in our communities, or external, like even across the seas, right? And the wars and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come to silence and we have ourselves to confront and deal with, it's a very scary place. And people would rather not.
Mm.
And so you have to say, what's going on for me? And where's this coming from? Because it's not this thing that just triggered me. It's not the bomb that was just sent over that is the underlying thing, right? That's the surface level. That's what's going on externally. But we have to look at what's going on inside. And if we get quiet, and people say all the time, like, there's a million things going on, right? People have their TVs, their radios, their conversations, their, games going. They got a million things going on. And they go, well, no, I like it. I like it. It keeps me company. It keeps me sane. That's the thing. It keeps you in whatever you're in. You have to get quiet and go within and say, oh, this is uncomfortable. Why is it uncomfortable? Not why is it? And the answer is not, oh, because the music's off and because I'm quiet right now. That's like you put down the drink, right? That's the addiction that's been controlling you. So now what's going on inside? What am I feeling? Being able, and like you could journal, or there's all kinds of ways that you can process through this, and everybody's different. But really taking that time to go, what is going on for me? And when you go, I don't like this, not jumping into getting out of it. Go, oh, I don't like this, right? Like, what's that mean? And you may want to then take a break, but you got to come back to it, and you got to keep going and digging down, because when somebody anybody gets to the core of their pain, and it always comes from childhood, it always comes from the past. When you get to the core of what is not healed, or where is that fear, or what's going on that needs to be cleaned up, then you can start working on that. And as you heal yourself from within, you become a vessel of peace. You cannot rage against the machine anymore because you have nothing, you have no rage inside. You heal the rage, and you replace that with just peace, with joy, with love, with purity, that which you are, right? You get back into alignment. And as you pour into yourself from the inside out, it bubbles up, and then you exude it. And so you become a more calm person. You become a more patient person. You become a more critically aware person, not a critical person as in blaming and shaming, but a more critically aware person to be able to go, whoa, wait a minute. That doesn't feel like that's, no, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. And you don't need to make up stories. You can just say, oh, this is definitely for me. This is not for me, and be unattached to anything around that, because you know who you are and you know how you feel.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, because I work with a lot of, predominantly teenagers. I feel as if they were listening right now, they would turn around to you and say, and no, not these words specifically, but peace isn't sexy. And a lot of young people I have found, and when I say young, I'm talking about, up to my age, and even older, if I'm being honest, a lot of people have almost become addicted to the chaos as a way of, as a way of identity, not just as a way of being, but they've kind of like clung to this. And, especially for those who are in the arts, or who are even in sports, it's almost like, oh, I need something to be angry about when I go on the field, or I need something to be angry about in order to write a song, or make a piece of art, or be the best boxer, whatever it is. How can we cognitively redefine what it means to be successful in peace?
Great question. And I think that any definition needs to come from within. We can't give somebody a definition that they don't have a personal experience with. And so going back to pedagogy, if you think about the different learning styles, there's the primary auditory, primary visual, and then there's kinesthetic. Everybody's kinesthetic. The auditory and the visual are secondary. When you have an experience, it becomes visceral. You know something. When you observe something, right, and then you're not connected to it. You don't have that internal new feeling, but it's those internal new feelings that are charged, that are emotion. And so when we have positive experiences, healthy experiences, experiences in which we feel safe and cherished and honored, we thrive. And when we have the opposite, we have to fight, or we get into these patterns of behavior. So if you're open to it, I would love to role play with you. Like, be that teenager, and let's talk about, like, challenge me about peace not being sexy, and let's go through a role play. Like, come at me, because I think then we'll be able to. I don't know. I think it might be fun and cool.
Now, you've triggered me slightly. I've never been a fan of role playing. This is funny. Okay, but yeah, I mean, let's go. Let's go. I mean, that's the point. I'm saying I don't want to role play.
Okay, so
I don't want to role play.
You don't need to role play. So peace not being sexy, or that, then if so, what is sexy and why is that important?
Well, sorry. It's I don't know, like, peace just sounds so boring.
So what would be not boring? Like, what's something else that's desired other than peace that would be something that you're striving for. And the question comes from anytime we get into any dialogue around anything, there's got to be an outcome that's desired, right?
So, sorry, this is me trying to be a teenager right now. I'm not very good at it.
No, don't.
It's been a long time since I've been a teenager. But a lot of the young people that I talk to, when they're talking about, when I specifically through the lens of empowerment through songwriting coaching, whenever I talk to them about this idea of becoming a whole happy human at peace with themselves, often they turn around and they give examples. For example, Drake is a miserable dude. Taylor Swift, she creates all of her art through heartbreak and boys. Doja Cat, same. All of the Ava Max, all of these artists, Billie Eilish is a huge one, obviously.
Human beings who we have a perception and a belief about, right? And so the thing is reminding people, whether they're young or not, that what you're observing and perceiving is this big. It's nothing. And we live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, cumulatively from the time we're born, moving up, right? And so, of course, there's heartbreak. You can't go through life without pain and heartbreak. Growth is painful, right? Even if you think about the physical body, you go through growth spurts and it does not feel good, right? Your different body parts, as we age, different things happen. It doesn't feel good. And so that's a physical manifestation of growth. But for energy, right? Any kind of growth, you're going to go through challenges. And so we can look backwards and say, what have I been through that I've learned from? And then turning that pain into something good and golden. And that serves people, because then people can go, ooh, I feel that, right? That's the beauty of music. It's a language of communication that is another level, and it's universal. You can feel something. And when you have those feelings, you can allow yourself to question. And that it goes back to that critical thinking, right? We've been taught, and the kids today have grown up in a world where they primarily have not been taught how to think critically, how to question authority, how to question themselves. They're taught to rage out. And so we can say, okay, well, Drake and Taylor and all these people, they've done their things and they're a big name. So now how about we look at us and go, what does that inspire for you? If you look externally at what's out there in the world, what do those icons, what do those people that you idolize make you feel inside that inspires? Because inspiration is the action of spirit, right? Creativity is the activity of creator. You're literally a channel for your divine spirit as you're in that creative space, as you're in the inspirational space. And you cannot be in fear and faith at the same time. You cannot have the high and the low together. It just doesn't work that way, right? Yeah. There's a polarity there. And so when we say, I don't want to be peaceful, I don't care about peace, peace doesn't matter. Okay, well, what do you want? Well, I want to be rich. Okay, why do you want to be rich? What does that mean to you? Well, it means that I don't need to deal with this and I don't need to deal with that. Great. So when you're rich, what are you going to deal with? Right? And just keep reframing. And so this is with kids, this is with adults, but we don't do this for ourselves often. And we're not teaching our children how to do this. And even by, if a parent's listening and thinking about an ornery teenager and this makes sense and I want to do that, but my kid won't. Are you sure? What would it be like to say, all right, we're going to try something new for 30 days. And every single time I make dinner, I'm going to have the kids in here. We're going to have a family conversation, or every time this for the next 30 days, and then adhere to it and see what happens. Right.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, so No Holds Back TV just said that it depends on the culture when it comes to dealing with authority. And I think that's a really great point. in Western culture, there's a much different relationship between parent and child than there is, for example, in Pacifica culture, which is where my father was from and how I was raised half my life. I love this conversation, and I'm so honored and inspired by your quite, unconventional Western approach to how we help our young people to take authority of their own development and take ownership and practice that critical thought of self, not just of the world around us, right?
I think personal ownership, that is so key for everybody.
Yeah, and I think, and I know that you made mention in our conversation before we went live today that you have a book, which I love, and but it's not just for the kids; it's for the parents as well. Where I think I have a very similar approach with my books. Is like whoever wants to heal their inner child, come at me, bro. But it's so important that I think that parents of teenagers especially take that time to work on themselves and lead by example, whether or not you have an authoritative relationship with your children or a more mentorship, even keel with authority as well. So before we get going, because we have run out of time, unfortunately, I feel like we could talk for hours. And where can people find out more about you? How can we stay in touch? How can we work with you? And do you have any last pieces of nuggets of advice that you'd like to pass along?
Thank you. So last nuggets of advice to pass along would be, we are always creating our own reality, collectively and individually. And so when we look out at the world and we observe that which we don't want, it's our responsibility to figure out, how do we become what we do want? Because when we become the vessel of peace, whether you want to call it peace or not, when we become, when we know who we are, we cannot hurt another one. We just can't, right? People act out in fear. People act out in anger. People act out in hurt. You cannot act out in love. You just are. You just exude.
Amen. Say it loud for the people in the back. I love that.
You can, Growth Seekers Welcome is my blog. Excuse me, growthseekerswelcome.com will take you there. And you can put in an email address and sign up if you want to get the posts or just read them there. But that's how you can reach me. And I'm always up for a conversation. Also, I'm streaming this on Facebook. Just anything that you want to, if somebody feels like, I'd really like to understand myself better. I'd really like to understand why I'm having the thoughts, the feelings, and I would like to do that from a non-judgmental, holistic approach. I'd love to support them with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. This is the very first episode of season number 2 of the Reconnect with Your Teenager podcast, which, if you weren't aware, is the name of my second book, because I'm very big on making sure that you have the tools to help your teenager, no matter how unconventional or conventional they may be, to help them figure out I don't know what's going on. Did it glitch out a little bit? There we go. Okay, friends. Yes, in case you missed that, be good, be kind. We will see you next time for episode number 2 next week. Same bat time, same bat channel here on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you again.